So we'll call a meeting to order of the Design Review Subcommittee, Wednesday, November 13th. We have one set of minutes, and I think Commissioner Cosgrove and Crandall were here for that one. I have no changes. Do you have any corrections to it?
Just that you're the we switched you to the vice chair when we reorganized.
Yep.
So they just need to update that.
How are you?
We could approve it pending that just
With
slight
that
change.
revision of the titles of the commissioners, I'll move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. We go to item 2A. Cultural Heritage Subcommittee is who we are being representing today. And David Carrillo, do you have a presentation on this item?
Yes, we do. Good afternoon. So before us this afternoon, we have 5 historic property preservation agreement applications, which I'll note which properties those are for. Just some quick background on what the Mills Act program is. This was adopted by the state in 1976. It's a program that provides a property tax relief for homes that are deemed to be qualified properties. And per our code, these qualified properties are ones that are listed and either income producing or owner occupied. Did we start it, Chris?
Yeah, let's make sure the lights on.
Okay. It is a minimum of a 10-year contract that automatically renews every year unless a notice of non-renewal is submitted by the owner. If at any point within the 10-year term there's a termination, there is a penalty fee of 12.5% of the full value of the property to be paid by the owner. We have not seen that in San Clemente, but it is something that's included in the contract as a penalty. So under this contract, the owner receives the property tax cut. In agreement, they agree to, or in return, they agree to reinvest the tax savings into the property, and they do improvements that I'll cover shortly. We do require 5-year compliance inspections. This is a state requirement that throughout the life of the contract that the city go out to the site every 5 years to ensure that the property is in compliance with this contract. As far as the review process, it entails a site visit. This is something that we already did with city staff. We had the Historical Society, Larry Culbertson, representing the Historical Society on site. We had the city's Historic Preservation Consultant, GPA, and the owner of each property go out to the site. We walked it, took some photographs to identify which improvements were appropriate to add to the list of the work list. After the site visit, we come to this meeting before the Cultural Heritage Subcommittee just to get feedback on the list. This is where we can discuss the specific items or the order. We can rearrange, if the board deems it necessary. We can hear out the owners if they have any questions or comments or requests to reorder an item. We can discuss that. It's not a final list yet until it goes to council and it's adopted. So the next step would be to go to city council, get the approval, and if approved by city council, the next step prior to December 31st would be to execute and record with county so that the property owner can realize the tax savings the following year, next year. So some common improvements that you'll find in the staff report are related to termite reports. This is something that we started doing a few years ago per city council request. They wanted to see a termite report being submitted to the city and recommended work to be done. We do have structural improvements, and you'll notice that all of the lists, we do prioritize structural improvements first, and then at the very bottom of the list, we'll work towards more aesthetic, cosmetic items. You'll see things like replacement of non-original windows and doors, removal of some unpermitted work, and paint work, for example. So overall, staff is supportive of the 5 Mills Act contracts, and again, we're here to receive feedback from the Cultural Heritage Subcommittee. And I am expecting all property owners. I know we have 2 right now. We have Christy and Laura. We don't have Christian Walk for the first one, 2A.
Why don't we skip to the ones
You want to skip
that are here?
Okay.
Yeah, we will, but before we start on individual ones, does any of the commissioners have questions about the Mills Act, how it applies, and so forth?
I don't have a question about that. I have a question about the schedule of improvements and when and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How was that determined? Obviously, it's on a case-by-case basis. I understand that. But as far as you said, prioritizing the structural improvements, what was like GPPA? Were they involved in
Yes.
prioritizing and stuff like that?
They not so much on prioritizing. They provided a list. They did not provide a timeline.
Okay.
In working with them, they do recommend that we prioritize structural
Okay.
related items first, and then be more cosmetic towards the end.
Yeah, with input from historic and the consultants and previous cultural heritage subcommittees, we prioritized stopping the deterioration first.
Right.
That was primary. Stop it in its tracks before any
Worse.
improvements start bringing it back up.
Okay.
So that's kind of the sequence of the lists now.
Okay. And then the amount of tax savings, is that kind of done, or is that determined by staff based on, because I noticed that they were all significantly different, or I assume it was kind of based on how much work was on the list of improvements to do?
No, not so much on the list. This was we do receive a summary from county, so we let county know how many properties are interested in the Mills Act,
Okay.
and they respond with the estimated tax savings.
So the tax savings comes from the county,
It comes from the county. Yeah, they do the calculation.
and it has nothing to do with how many items are on the list?
No.
Okay, interesting.
And it's just a rule of thumb, come as close as you can to it.
Yeah.
But we have no idea 3 years out what something's gonna cost. So it's
sure.
very hard to, so it's a best guess, and working with the applicants to know what are their priorities also.
Okay. How good is the county to work with on this stuff?
They've been extremely helpful.
Oh, good,
Yeah, especially this year. They've been very helpful and cooperative.
good.
So Bart, I have a global thing to your point,
Okay.
which is, I think, really important to be clear about, because we're recommending these contracts to the council. And my question is for you, David, to review what qualifies a property for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just because it's old. I don't believe, that's my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a historical house because it was built in the 30s, boom.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is it's one of 2 things. A, it's listed in the National Register of Historic Places, or it's located in a registered historic district. Do we have a registered historical district in San Clemente?
We have the North Beach.
North Beach is the only one.
historic district.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to qualify for A, it's got to either be in North Beach in this district, or it has to be on the National Register of Historic Places.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Then there's one more,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's got to be listed in a state, city, county official register of historical or architecturally significant sites. Do we have such a list?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are all these properties included on that list? Or do they meet criteria A?
They're under criteria B.
All of them?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so for the list, are they all on the list?
Yes.
Okay. Thought that was
Thank
important
you.
to get on the record that they're all qualified.
They do.
And then one last global, and I don't know the answer to this one. Other jurisdictions have a dollar value, like Mills Act can only go up to 150,000 in LA, but we have Mills Act houses that are worth far more than that. So we have no limit on
No.
value of the property for the Mills Act, correct?
That's correct.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
You know, if there was a decision on something like that, it would be at the time of the city council considering an application. You know, if they-
Well, I think it would have to be a policy, and if we don't have a
Yeah.
policy, that's fine.
yeah.
I just
But
want
if
to
there
make
was
sure.
something exceptional, you know, in the decision-making process, then that would be a city council item, like they would have to direct some change.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Okay, so let's move on. David, can you present the Mills Act ones for the members that are here right now?
Yes. This will be.
So we'll go in whatever order you-
Laura, you want to come up to the table? Yeah. So this is Laura's home. You can. bring
Sorry,
this-
I can, I'll move.
You have one right here. You could write your name on here
Here's what I'm gonna
before the end of the meeting.
Did you guys want to?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to meet you. This is so exciting. I'm Nora Bello. This is my home.
So for this property, actually, Laura, for this one you weren't able to attend, but you had I think a friend of yours, right?
A friend and local real estate agent,
Yeah.
Jeremy Carr.
Join us. So this one was built in 1935. It's significant, similar to the others. Is it's Spanish colonial revival architecture and the date of construction. For this one, the total number of improvements came out to be 23. And what we can do here, if the board would like, we can open up the PDF and we go through each item if you guys think it's necessary, or leave it up to the property owner if she has any questions or comments. We're open to however the board wants to handle this review.
I think we can just, well, you can open up the PDF, but my one question is, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, what's the significance of calling it a phase?
Looks like that's the year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we have a
Years.
duration of 10 years and we only go up to 4.
Well, like phase 1 is identified as 2025, and then phase 2. Oh, I see what you're saying. That it doesn't go well beyond the 2028. It just says ongoing.
Yeah, I just,
Yeah, so we can spread it out more.
no, I just
Yeah.
want, oh, so you're just doing it for a year?
For a year, right?
Okay,
I
that
think
might have been clear.
Bart, for me, I think rather than draining this piece of paper row by row, I would prefer if we ask the applicant, every applicant the same questions. Like, are you confident you can complete all these?
That's for us to decide.
Well, I'd like their input on it though.
We can certainly ask that question, but we're the ones that determine that. And I will tell you, generally, what staff does and all, the cost of doing these improvements is far below what this tax savings is each year.
That doesn't matter because
Sure it does.
it's always a matter of their cash flow and their resources, their timing, when they can get construction. And I just want to make sure, since that they say on the record, yes, we're comfortable, we can deliver these in the time frame, because there's a lot. Some have a lot in a year, some have very little in a year. That's one. I just would like to
And
just a general
these are
question.
not cast in stone. In the preliminary year, if they find that termite damage far exceeds what their tax saving is, staff has the ability to say, okay, we'll postpone the other ones. So these are not
Okay.
cast in stone, that's,
Got it.
right down the line. It is,
There's some flexibility.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, David, can you touch on that some more?
Yeah,
That-
so,
that part of the contract.
A few years ago, there was per resolution, City Council approved the ability to have staff make changes like that administratively, not to keep the same number of improvements, but to change the order if the property owner needed that
Okay.
arrangement. So it's definitely something we can do administratively.
There's flexibility.
Yeah.
Got it.
Absolutely.
And so that input, and then the other input is I'd like to know, since termite reports are always at the ongoing, I kind of like to know when the last one was done and when they expect to do the next one. That's part of for every applicant. That just would be helpful. for
Well,
me.
or should we consider getting a,
Up front.
putting a termite report in 2025 and everything?
Yeah, as if they said, well, I haven't done one, then I think we should do that. But if they
Right.
say, oh, I did one 2 years ago, that's probably not necessary.
Right.
And that works especially for new owners.
Yeah.
When they buy them, they should get a termite report on a 100-year-old house. I mean,
Usually they do.
but they can take possession without having the work done.
Yeah,
So
I think that'd just be helpful
that's
to
also
know.
a question of,
yeah.
was the repairs done at the time?
Right. Is there, so like on this, Laura, is it?
Yes.
On Laura's home, there's this, I don't know what, at the end of 2025, does she submit a letter to you saying, hey, we did all these things, or XYZ? Because I know you talked about a 5-year review, but is there any kind of an annual, follow-up?
Yeah, and that's a good question. So what I left out from the presentation was that this is just a contract we're working with. It's not a permit that we're issuing. So they still need to come back to the city and go through an administrative permit process. So when they submit the permit, that'll allow the city and staff to document it on the property. So we somewhat keep track of, or we do keep track of what's going on as they go through the list, but the 5-year inspection is still done just to, sometimes there's cases where owners do things that are not going through the city, so we just have to make sure that they're still overall in compliance. So there is a way, to answer your question, we do document what's being done.
So, but what I'm saying is, what if Laura heard her back and didn't do anything in 2025? There would have been no permits applied for. Would you guys see, oh, Laura didn't apply for anything? Or is there any kind of follow-up or counting on an annual basis, or it wouldn't really show up until the 5th year?
The 5th year, yeah. Yeah, so then that's when every 5 years, in working with GPA, the consultant, we develop a list of improvements to, if they completed everything, we can add more. That's something we can do. And then we give them a letter stating their compliance
And their-
status.
And applicants should understand this. There's a pretty healthy penalty
Right.
when things aren't done, although we don't enforce it under circumstances like that, where somebody just flat out can't do it. We work with them to get the work done properly and all,
Right.
without, so there is a downside to not doing the work.
Right. Right. But it doesn't sound like there's really
No,
a hard mechanism to even see if
not for
they're doing
5
it or
years.
not. Right.
No.
And does the applicant have any questions about the sequence or the work being done and requested for the Mills Act?
Honestly, I had a few questions that David and I walked through this morning, and I feel like it really addressed some of the question marks, and so I'm comfortable with the outline. I think there's a lot of work to be done, and the house is going to continue to be beautiful, and there will be some stuff I'll really need to focus on. But it's a good task, and I have 10 years to get each and every one done, so it'll be a fun agenda, but I'll need to keep up with it.
Very good, thank you. And by the way, thank you for taking charge of a historical building in town. Let's open it up for public comment for each one, rather than
Yes.
doing it at the end. So do we have anyone, Mary Culbertson, go ahead.
Larry Culbertson with Historical Society. I want to start out by saying what a great report it is. The reports are so much better now than they were 10 years ago. Maybe 10 years ago, there'd be 3 or 4 or 5 things on there. Kind of, having the professionals in here, the quality of the report is much better. And I don't agree with what you said, that they're not checking, that they should be checking every year, not once every 5 years. Prior to about 10 years ago, there was an annual report given to the city council on the state of the Mills Act. Every year they got a report, this many joined on, this, they tracked how people have been complying with the things that were required to be done. And we need to get back to that. You shouldn't wait 5 years. Your YZ needs to be done. And it's just not fair. This particular property is a great list that was put together. I think it would be good if the report pointed out that this is about a 78% savings on the property tax. $10,600. Otherwise, it would be the property tax would be $13,000 a year. So it's going to be knocked down to under $4,000. It's important for the commissioners to understand that this is a tremendous. Your report said 40 to 70, but a couple of these properties are getting rid of that money be sunk back into the.
Okay, any other comments?
I just got my first property tax bills. It's
Ouch.
closer to 60% savings. But it was still
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah, Paul Parsons, a board member with the Historical
Right down the
Society.
From
and
speaker.
Paul Parsons.
Paul Parsons?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. And I have Ole Hansen home that David helped us to get on the Mills Act last year. And so I've been through this process and understand it. And what we're trying to do as a historical society is encourage people like yourself to take on this and be custodians of these properties so that we don't lose those resources. And so it's really, we commend you for doing that. But I also agree with Larry, and even though it affects me, I think it's imperative that we have some mechanism to follow up and make sure that people are actually doing what they say they're going to do. And in my case, I spent much more than the tax savings over the 10 years already on the property because of the condition that it was. So we're going to continue to keep it up because that's who we are. But not everybody is that way. And so proving this comes with some responsibility that I think we need to recognize as a city, that those tax savings come with the responsibility on the owner to actually implement those changes and have some sort of a follow-up that is going to hold them accountable for doing what they say they're going to do.
Okay, and maybe we'll, since we're just an advisory committee, can we have Jonathan look into seeing when it stopped being checked on the years and if there's funds available to do an annual review, and or do we have computer software now that could kick it out and give us a heads up that nothing is,
Yeah, there's some changes that have been made to the program in an effort to improve it. One was to get council approval of imposing a fee for an inspection. David could talk about that more, but and that is to cover like GPA's time for the work that Larry commented on for this application, right? But there, to be honest, there was a period of time when we've had a lot of staffing vacancies, and so administering the program for some time dropped off. Like our ability to go out to every property and check, or to send letters and follow up and whatnot. So in some respects, we're catching up, and what we need to do is to tackle that in a more of a cohesive way, and so that's something that we could follow up with the Planning Commission. We used to have an Excel sheet that had every property and the status of the improvements, and that's where I see us probably having to go to do something like this, is having a database. And but databases are only as good as the data you put in, right? And so that would involve a decision on do we phase it in or do you know.
Okay.
And so we'll have to like get back to the planning commission maybe at the end of one of the meetings. You could do a update on it.
Would I be incorrect in saying that we probably all three would encourage
Yep.
doing that?
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
and I have another comment, which is, I mean, I would think that we should put the onus on the applicant a little, say, hey, and I don't know if we can do that on ones that got approved last year, but on going forward, say, hey, on December, by January 31st of each year, the owner needs to send in a letter and, address each of the items that were supposed to be tackled in the previous year. They could send it, hey, we did this, we did that, we had a problem with this. They could attach photos, and then it would be much easier, put the onus on the applicant. They're the one that's, getting the tax savings. And then staff could review that much easier, scan it, and then it's, oh, we didn't do anything. Oh, well, no, let's talk about it, or hey, these people are getting most of the stuff done, or whatever.
Okay,
And that's
we've got
Can I
another
just
comment
follow
here.
with that? That's exactly my same thought, Scott, is to do that form of that,
Parson.
except that it would have another component, which is that the city would generate some form of an email or a letter to the owner that reminding them to do that, so that there's some city involvement in the process. So rather than them spending a bunch of money going out and actually inspecting properties, which takes time and energy, have something that gets spit out to the owner through the computer system that just reminds them, hey, this is coming due, and then if it doesn't show up, hey, we're gonna penalize you if you don't produce the information that we're asking for.
Very good. I think all we can do is encourage staff and council to pursue
think we
this,
can make
because
a
this is
recommendation
part of
or-
the contract, which we are not involved in. We don't review the contract, the actual contract. That's council, and they would have to include that either as a line item or a caveat in the contract itself. So I think we have to leave that up to,
But we could recommend
yeah,
that they.
which I think
do
we
that.
just did.
I think for the purpose today, my suggestion would be to ask staff to have a discussion item with the planning commission. At a
First,
future,
before
future
the-
agenda.
Before
Well,
the-
like as a separate, like as a topic item, because that's more of a programmatic discussion.
Yeah.
Like where are we at? How can we improve things? Whereas these items, they're timely. We need it in order to
Yeah,
give
we
them
gotta
the
get this
tax
done.
savings. It has to be done by the end of the year. So
Or December
I
10th.
would ask that we, this is something that we will respond to. I would suggest that we address that at a planning commission
Okay.
meeting after staff has. We're going to need some time to look at the,
Okay,
discontinuation of when we did it annually and think about
Yeah.
some options.
what you wanna do, okay.
Yeah.
Because I think the 5 years does confuse, because as long as I've been here, they come up every year.
Mhm.
So you're doing something every year, and then, to me, it's a lot more work to go, okay, this is 5-year anniversary for this one, not for that one. So just do them all the same every year, just do a little update.
Well-
To me, tracking the 5 years would be harder than just tracking them all every year.
Well, but I mean, if they do what I suggested,
That's the same thing.
it
that's
could,
what I'm
we
saying.
could get 95% of the information, if not 100% of the information,
Yeah.
while you're sitting at your desk.
Yeah, I
This
think
is not a
there's
new
two-
conversation we've had
Yeah.
as a group. Like Chris has said, staffing and all is really where it dropped off, and if we can get it going back again, I think Historical Society agrees with it. I think we do. I think staff even does.
Yeah,
So-
we agree. There's just a need to think through this. There is a reason why we do the 5 years, but I think that there's probably some room to fill in the gaps.
Okay.
Just they have different purposes. The 5 years is actually to
And
see it and make sure there's nothing
Let's see.
unpermitted there.
Back to
this one, go ahead.
304 here.
Mhm.
There is, right on number 1, it does reference a photo 23 for your driveway arch, but there's, Chris, there's no photo 23 in the packet. I don't know if that was, oh yes, wait a minute, there it is. I think that's it, did I see that?
Yep.
Yeah, there it is, okay, never mind. Just wanna make sure we had all the photos in there, it's just, I didn't see that. That's, okay. Wait a sec.
Here's photo 23.
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
that one.
Okay, that's it, okay.
And a wood is just not an item, just a heads up for applicants. The worst thing that could happen to a historic is do a beautiful driveway, walkway, 2 years later having to dig it up and patch it. So do have your sewers looked at with a camera. And if necessary, they can blow in a membrane that at least goes under those areas so it wouldn't have to be dug up and because they're probably cast iron or clay, and they do deteriorate. So would we all be in agreement that we agree and approve 304 Avenida Sarah's Mills Act application?
I have one question. Laura, are you comfortable with this list and the timing as proposed?
Yeah, I think so. It looks like I need to start with the integrity of the structure and get some outside advice. And then as time goes on, I'll get to work on more of the aesthetics.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear
that
too.
is
I
the
want to make sure
whole
you
philosophy.
understand this?
Well, as a former civil engineer, these things seem very reasonable.
Okay, okay.
And just a clarification that the subcommittee would just be forward a recommendation to the city council, and that their role is to make a decision on that.
Yes, that's
the
correct.
contract, yeah.
We're basically approving it to go up to them with our concurrence.
Yes.
Yeah, which I think they're gonna rely on pretty
Yeah.
heavily, so,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Timothy.
Thank you.
Which one would you like to do next?
We can do, thank you, Laura.
Thank
Touch
you.
base after. We have Christy, you want to join us?
Which one is that?
Christy is for 210 West Mariposa.
Christy, if you could write your name on here,
Okay.
appreciate it, thank you.
210,
Oh,
210,
yeah,
That's items 2D.
2.
so we did 2C already?
It's attachment
We did
4.
2C,
Yep,
we just
got
did
it.
2C.
210 is attachment 4.
So this one was built in 1928, significant similar to the previous one. This one has a total of 22 improvements. And Christy, I'll start by asking you, did you have any questions or comments regarding the list?
The only thing that I would, was wondering if we could just, push, one or two of the 2025 ones to 2026. Preferably the chimney,
Which?
You have a lot on here for
Yeah.
this next year.
yeah,
If you want to just maybe item number that you're thinking.
okay, item 1 and 7, I mean, they would probably go together with a structural engineer. It'd be great to move them to 2026, I mean, I've already paid over $10,000 in property taxes this year.
Well, that's kind of against the philosophy of stopping deterioration in its tracks. I would probably be more inclined to pick another one or two versus that either.
What's your reason?
Some of the
for wanting to do
landscaping
that?
or,
Just because I've already paid
Crawl
so much
space.
in out of pocket and the property taxes and just as far as the expense, it's very expensive with the work that would be for the foundation and the chimney.
Gotcha. Do you have kind of estimates already, or just
No.
a concern?
and, she wasn't here when we had our opening discussions. You came in a little late, correct?
No, I've been here.
Oh, because
She's behind you.
these are negotiable with the staff, that if in fact something is a bigger hit than anticipated,
Oh, okay.
you can restructure them.
Then I'm fine with going forward with this.
Okay,
And then if you get an estimate and you're like, that's just not in the budget, you could contact David and ask it to be moved.
and
I think the main thing I think Bart's trying to say is the ideal sequence would be structural things
I
first
understand.
instead of things last.
Yeah.
And I think this is another one where you're probably gonna end up doing driveway landscaping and all, so just kind of check the pipes that you don't do all that expense and find out you gotta replace a sewer line.
Oh, can I ask
We
you?
also checked water and electrical, because both were bad on ours, so I would check all three.
But not
May as
council.
well go for the big one and get gas too.
Landscape.
But, very good. So, any specific questions
Yeah, just
on this
do-
one?
The termite rate, do you remember the last time your house was termite inspected?
I just purchased the home.
Okay, so recently, gotcha.
Okay, so that one will be able, all you'd have to do is provide the, report and, hopefully, did you have that work done before it was,
The termite work?
escrow closed?
I have to look back, I can't remember.
Okay, well, hopefully that's something you can work out with staff also. If we have no specific ones for this one,
Just, but you're comfortable with the whole list?
I am.
Okay.
then I would recommend we move this forward to, city council with our, recommendation for approval.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your
Are you guys here for a specific property?
No.
Or just
Just
public?
observing.
Okay.
You're here for fun? You get a gold star.
Okay, so.
Anybody else here?
Yes, we have Larry and Joel, yes, for 402 Pasadena Court. Yes, and. Yeah.
Well, Larry,
I think
if
we-
you can, write your names on here for me. Appreciate it.
We all recognize this property. This came before Planning Commission for what's called the Secret Hotel and Restaurant project. And so I'll do my best to explain a little bit more about this one. And
It is a
rest.
complicated one.
So right from the start, and talking to GPA, we were discussing how to approach this, and the best way really is to was to go out there and do an inspection like any other property, as if the project were to not happen. In the event it doesn't happen, we still have a nice list of improvements that the owner can work off of and preserve the site. However, we can't completely ignore the fact that we have a project in place. They're currently in Coastal Commission review, right, Larry? You guys are having approval of that, and then they come back to the city for building and permit. So the way we plan on going about this is that we'll add language on the contract that will basically tell the county, because county needs to know which parts of the property or the site will be under the Mills Act tax rate. Historically, the city has not been including new construction under the Mills Act, and so for this hotel restaurant project, that will not be under the Mills Act. So for staff's work here is to be clear on the contract that City Council reviews and approves, that the only portions that will be under the Mills Act will be the original building, and that the new construction will not. So we need to be clear on that. Did you have any question on that?
A real quick one. Was there a lot merge on this? Or is it two separate lots with two
there's two
different
separate
assessor
parcels.
parcel numbers?
There's two separate parcels, so that's something that Larry had brought up to us, and
Yeah.
and David and I were brainstorming earlier. If you could address that.
So,
So-
to add a little more, so when county responded with the estimated tax savings for this property, because we do have two legal parcels here, the parcel with the building is the main income producing parcel, which does receive an estimated tax savings of, what was it, Larry? I think you have it here, like 16,000, I think.
16,256.
Yeah, the other parcel on the garden side did not receive any, right? And when asking the county why that was the case, was because that's just it's deemed as a miscellaneous lot accessory to the main parcel with the building. So that Larry had a question about that, and Larry, did you want to comment on that right now regarding the whole two parcels and receiving tax savings on one parcel but not the other?
Well, the main thing was in this journey, the biggest items were the staircase, the runnel, the gardens, and the fountain. And regardless, they need a full reconstruction, as well as the lower patio area is all sliding, decaying. And then you also have a building, the small little cookhouse or whatever they used to call it back then. So there is a building there. There are stairs there. It is a significant, what I call a gem of the city, but we're not getting any credit for it. So that was my overall. Because my guess, I haven't researched it yet, but my guess is that there's precedence somewhere of trying to maintain and keep a historic part of the city. There should be something for that lot. So that's
Well, and I think despite the fact that the plan, differs and things are going to change within that plan, we really worked hard to still keep the same look, try to use some historical materials, even on the case where you're gonna have the public area where people go. That was not public area, but my understanding is they used to serve food out of that little house, and then people came up there, and where right now there's I guess just tile that's falling apart. That's where the dance floor used to be. In fact, one of our neighbors said to us, "I'd be interested to see what's under that because nobody's looked under there for years." So I guess for us it was a little bit difficult to understand why that lot would not be included, because really the whole project in itself is going to be taken into consideration. And I know, again, there's differences between if it turns commercial, but for us, for now, paying property taxes, we do have to address, even before things pass with the coastal commission, like Larry's saying, we have an issue on the side, which everyone can see, that we don't want any slippage. We want to make sure that we can, we're not liable for anything. So
there's line items in the spreadsheet that we'll see that are part of that lot. So if you're not getting any credit for it, then why should it be included?
So this address what David and I were talking about is, well, we can follow up with the county and try to get more information before we go to city council on those questions. But our thought is, a lot of it comes down to how you write the list, and so we can clarify in there the items that pertain to that other property with the merger of the properties as part of the development project. Then those related improvements come into play. If the project weren't to happen and the lot merger, then those related improvements would not be part of the Mills Act. So that's what our thought is. It's like all how you write up the lists, and not if you're going to get tax savings to go into the property, then and let's say those tax savings are dependent upon the lot merger, then that should be reflected in how everything's documented.
Well, the home part is on 402.
Correct. It's right here on the screen.
The fountain is on 404. Just to be to remain historic, without the Mills Act, the work has to be maintained and completed, the fountain and all. So the house is getting a lot of changes. Okay, so if the house is done, it's going to see the greatest tax savings on 402, but for the overall construction, that fountain is going to be kind of a small portion of the cost with the parking structure, the platform and all. So it's not going to be that big a tax savings on that parcel. They almost have to be calculated.
And that's what County was saying,
yeah.
exactly what you're saying right now.
But they have to maintain it either way. But to be fair, I don't know how we'd assess that. That is a problem.
That's why I'd like to reach out to the county again to
Yeah.
talk about this.
Isn't 404 new construction
Yes.
if the project goes through.
But it's replacement in kind of the fountain, et cetera, which
As new
is
construction,
considered historic.
but it's new construction.
Any restoration is new
It's not
construction,
even
depending on the
restoration,
amount.
it's new construction. That's my take on it, and my feeling is if the project goes through, we should only be looking at 402. If the project does not go through, and the owner comes back and says, I'm not gonna go forward with this project, I have entitlements, but I can't get it from coastal, or I can't get it funded, I'm gonna just maintain this, come back, and amend it, and have 404 included. But if it's, the intention is to go forward with new construction on 404, I don't see why it's even in scope.
I think, I see your point. I think what we were inclined to do is to have a customized work list on this one. Is to have some of the improvements conditional on what happens with the
I
property.
guess I was looking, what's the
Yeah.
trigger though for, I mean, if they could give a cost estimate to the county
Mhm.
of what the fountain and the stairs and all costs that are really replacing the historical items in kind, have that taken off the assessed value of that lot, which is going to be, you'll have exact amounts of what it costs to build. Because the county's the one that's going to
Right.
try to determine this.
And we talked about this scenario with county today, and they said that they'll be able to, if construction happens, they'll be able to take the stairs, the fountain, and the lower terrace patio, which are more original, even though they're being rehabbed or reconstructed. They can take that into account. Like you said, it'll still be more, right? It won't be as much that they'll
Because
realize.
the consultant says this is in keeping with the Secretary of Interior standards, which is the equivalent of maintaining its historical significance,
Yeah.
which may not be enough for Larry, but it's something.
And I'll remind
Okay.
us too that I was talking to Larry Culbertson earlier too about this, is that with or without the Mills Act, historic properties are subject to our historic preservation ordinance,
Correct.
right? So if we see some areas in the garden side that are dilapidated per code, there's still maintenance standards that they need to, comply with.
Yeah.
So it's not like without the Mills Act, there's no opportunity to improve it. There's still code for us to enforce. And Larry, the owner, knows that.
Okay. So how do we take this one without knowing what the county's going to do?
My thought.
Do we direct you guys to work that out prior to it going to the city council?
Yes, but I do think it would be helpful if the group could comment on what
Do we,
Subcommittee Cosgrove was talking about, using the tax savings to fund those improvements versus having other improvements.
let's start
That'd be
with,
part of the agreement. Like, I think that because
Okay.
those are related to what's in the work list.
so let's start with, do we have a
Well,
list?
let's hit Cameron.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
My packet says one will be forthcoming at the meeting.
We emailed it to everybody, and then do we need to we'll bring it up.
While they're doing that, Cameron, understand your first comment. Is that the one you're sticking with?
Mhm.
Okay.
And speaking to what you were saying, because I was looking, I only had like really a day where he gave me a heads up on it. But I was looking kind of back in the 1995 historic DPR and the subsequent August 2006 historic resource group report. And there's specific mentions on this property specifically to the gardens themselves and to the stairs and to the fountain. And I think what you're saying in the verbiage is that if it is in kind, Like if it's too dilapidated or not
Mhm.
functional like the fountain, this should be something that we should.
And
be
that,
able to-
if it was all on the same lot, it would be included. The kicker is separating the two lots and
I'm curious,
the paperwork.
the two lots, how are they assessed right now? Is the lot is 404,
We pay separately, and we pay 2 tax bills.
but is it significantly smaller? Because what I heard was that the county said, well, that was just miscellaneous or ancillary to the other one.
It's not, it's lower, but it's not significantly. I would
It's a
say.
larger lot, actually.
So land value, but then there's no improvements on it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sympathetic to your argument because if, there could be historically significant landscaping, clearly a lot of historical significance there, but if you're not getting credit for it,
Again, it comes down to what they're gonna do.
even if, I thought we were creating the list assuming the project doesn't go forward.
We have to prepare for both scenarios.
Yeah.
So my suggestion was, assuming the project doesn't go forward, okay? Because I think we should cover both
Right.
scenarios. So if the project weren't to go forward, then use some of the tax savings to rehab the fountain and to do all those things on the other property. In that, building into the work list that scenario, making it clear, if the project doesn't go forward on that other property, these things are to occur, right? Like that, I see value, staff, I think, generally sees value in that because there's
Administer that,
costs.
Chris,
What's that?
you can administer that. In other words, right now, there's a path. We spent a year going through this project and approving it.
Yeah.
Public hearings, gnashing of teeth, lots of comments, hours of comments.
Yes.
I'm taking the man at his word. That's what they're doing. Therefore, in my opinion, I say it's 402 only. And if he changes his mind and says, you know what, after all of that, I'm not going to do it, for whatever reason, doesn't matter, come back. Come back.
It's not that easy to change a Mills Act.
And I think right
But we're
now,
talking separate parcels.
I do
It's
wanna
a
be
contract on
clear.
402, then you come back for a contract on 404.
our intention though, we want to be clear, is obviously we went through hell. This has not been a
Right.
joyride for us. So our hope is that the coastal will pass it. But we know that we're gonna have to deal with that, and that's not gonna be easy either. So, in terms of what we're looking at right now, is we've put a lot of expense into doing the plan, obviously, that we wanna do, which is, the hotel and everything else that's historic about it. But we also personally are trying to look at our own finances and say, okay, we've been paying out taxes and taxes and taxes. We're just looking at this in that sort of scenario, because if it doesn't take off, that is something that we are looking, that lot as well is something that we're responsible for.
Okay, let me jump in here. What is the best scenario for starting construction
On the project,
on the project, on the new project?
Coastal's asking for a lot more information. They're even
2 years? I mean, getting funding and getting drawings, yada,
I
yada,
would hope
yada.
so, yeah.
About 2 years, okay.
I mean, we have a permit to start at least the interior of the main house.
So should we be really looking at a Mills Act that could be revised in 2 years for the whole site and whatnot, or for both sites? Then we'd be covered if, in fact, they don't do it. What would be different in what we were asking them to do versus if they do construct it?
But there
It's
is a
about the
there is
same
a building
thing.
on
Right.
404 though.
Hmm?
There is a building on 404.
Yeah, but I think estimated value of those, what we're looking at, so it should be assessed quite a bit lower.
Than the main house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So county made it clear to me that, either way we go, the two parcel numbers, both APNs need to be on the contract. That we should not,
Okay.
we should not go through the Mills Act contract only including one APN, not the other, because it's functioning as one lot, one site owned by one owner. They did tell me though that if we wanted to remove the items that are on the 404 lot, that we can. I mean, that's a city decision. We could do that if we wanted to, and then just focus more on the improvements for 402. So that's
Because I don't know how we'd make a task list for the next 2 years for the fountain lot 404 that makes any sense, because anything would be removed. But we could make a list for the house itself until construction starts to repair it and basically look at the project as if nothing's going to happen and it's just a repair.
See, I think
Because nothing's
Yeah.
going to happen for 2 years, so that means really.
yeah.
David, is
But
the
I
wall-
understand why you want to get it
Is
in
the
place
wall
now.
on that side where the stairs are, it's like that, is that 402? Is that considered 402? That's my main concern, is where
I
that
would hope
crack is.
so.
Yeah, I think
But
that.
the wall
I would hope
runs,
so.
the wall runs
Yeah, it's
all the way
402,
down
yeah.
the perimeter.
looks like it's 402. Yeah.
So
I
I
think
think-
it's also, it's further east on the wall crack is also where the driveway is as well.
Right.
It's border, it's, yeah,
But
it's
it's all
all along
402.
that whole area there.
Right.
But the whole wall, if you go, I've been in the bush there, like there's a hedge that's there. It's all broken apart as well. And there's bees in there nesting. So it is broken. It's not a crack, but it's significantly, dilapidated
On the garden.
So
on the garden.
So
So
what
I
I'm
think that-
looking for,
Same thing
Chris,
that
is
runs.
finding out what can they do in the meantime
yeah.
to stop deterioration,
Mhm.
maintain the existing house,
Mhm.
that wouldn't have to be abandoned or torn out if in fact they go ahead with the project.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this is gonna come down to how we write things up when it goes to
Yeah.
council, the work list. So, I think it's staff's. We can approach this in different ways. What the subcommittee recommends, but I'll just say staff would rather not go through multiple processes and amend contracts if we don't have to. So I think that there's probably an approach that we could take to carefully craft the work list, to be clear on the fact that the tax savings should go into restoring the fountain and some of the things on 404 if the project weren't to commence. And we could say that the items like you're touching on that are directly related to the construction of the project, right? That you're tearing out something that will be part of the development project, that we could alter the timeline to be something like to commence. If we're saying that in an ideal scenario it's 2 years from now, then we say 2 years or the start of the project, whatever is later, right? So, and staff does in the contract have the ability to work with the applicant to adjust things. So if it ends up being 2028, right, when they get the coastal development permit, then it's 2028. But at least there's some mechanism in there to make sure that the tax savings at a minimum would cover the fountain. It would cover some of the things that are of historical significance without having to reinitiate a Mills Act program change later. That's what we were thinking, and it's just we're up against the clock getting this to council. So I think
For this
Yeah.
for this property tax.
I'm just
area.
confused by this because if the stuff on 404 is gonna be done as part of the new construction, are you saying, Christopher, that despite being new construction and the new use, it's still Mills contract eligible?
no, what I'm saying is, well, I know that the understanding in this room is that the project's going to happen.
Right.
There's been several things that I've worked on in the past where the lesson was don't assume things. Like it's better to assume the worst, okay? And like just cover both scenarios. So one scenario is the project moves forward and everything is completed, right? Everything is completed other than new construction, to your point earlier.
Okay.
Not new construction. Because that's what the policy of the city council is, not new construction.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
why I was trying to differentiate. that.
Yeah. But if the project doesn't go forward, there are historically significant features on the property. And tax savings could go to improve those things. So that's what we're trying to do.
Either way, you're amending it, right? Because I don't know how you do an A or B.
It's just how you can make certain things conditional. Like, we don't normally do that, but you could say
But
these things
That
will.
can actually be administered with the county.
Yes.
Yes.
They can do that.
Yes, they said as long as the city makes it clear on the contract, if new construction were to happen, you guys need to be clear with us to let us know what is covered and what isn't under the Mills Act. So per policy though, we have not been including new construction.
Right.
So we would just repeat that and include that in the contract.
And that's your preference, then waiting and seeing what happens, because they're not gonna, right? You're not gonna do anything with the 404 stuff. You're gonna wait until you just know what you're doing. It would be silly.
Yeah.
Do
no.
any work on the fountain and then go, oh, we're gonna do a project, rip it all out. No, you're not gonna do that. That's not gonna be touched.
Correct.
So
And it would be set up that way.
only the home is gonna be touched.
Yes.
Only 402. That's why I just don't understand why it's so hard. Why can't we just say 402? That's the contract, and if it turns out in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever, they're not doing it, and they want to come back and say, okay, doggone it, we tried, but couldn't make it work for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. It could be coastal, it could be economics, it could be whatever. What's the downside of saying come back?
Time.
And redo, and we can do an amendment to your contract.
I'm just confident that staff can work with the applicant to word the list in a way where that's unnecessary.
Okay,
And I'd
and then
rather
the
not take an extra step for something
And the
that
county
we can
can-
work out with the owner.
So when the county does their assessments every year, they'll look at that and go, okay, these improvements are not triggered yet, so we're not including them.
Yeah, so to both of your point, you wouldn't be obligated to do some of the things that you brought up to David. None of those would apply, based upon whatever happens with the project, okay? So it addresses your concerns, but it also could avoid an unnecessary step.
But
Yeah.
let me look at this all the way through. Let's say that you go forward with your proposal and you put all the 404 stuff on there. But they do the project, so it's not new construction.
Mm-hmm. Then
Yeah,
it's
what are you
not.
gonna- so
then
then
it
it
doesn't
just
apply. Then.
Doesn't apply, but are they still compliant in their contract?
Yes, if we write it up that way.
Okay,
You just need to make it very clear what applies and when. And the only thing that's different about this is that some things would be conditional. Like some things would basically be optional depending upon what happens, right?
okay.
Whereas most of the time it's just these things always have to be done. That's the only thing that's unique. So what just is important is that we work out with the owner what the wording is, and that they're confident. If they're not confident with it, then we just drop the 404 stuff, like you're saying.
Okay.
So I think I'm just asking for the subcommittee to give staff some discretion to work with the owner to make sure that it works. And if they're not comfortable with it, then we take out those things.
Well, and that's what I said too, is we can work it out in the agreement and just put it in the agreement and without hearing you until now, so.
I understand. I'm trying to find like
Can I ask a question though? If
certain
they've just looked at 404, like, did they say no to 404 because of the project? Or because
No.
they didn't find that there were historically significant?
He made it pretty simple to me. It's not an income producing parcel.
Okay.
The income
Who made that
producing
decision?
county.
This
Despite the fact that if
non-contributing?
it's dilapidated
Not
and
income
we're
producing.
required to, by the city to repair things, and there
That-
is an expense outlay, it's not like it's just an empty lot.
But that's
You know what I
back to
mean?
eligibility.
There he has a question. There he has a question.
Right.
And it's the merging of the lot, that's the thing, like, we're treating them like they're two lots right now, but in all fairness, it seems like it's going the direction either way of both lots merging, possibly.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, we can't write it up like that, though,
Yeah.
I don't think. Larry, I'm
Isn't-
gonna let
isn't it the
Larry
case
speak at
that
this time.
Isn't it the case that they do the computation on the basis of what rent comes in?
Yes. Income based.
There's nothing on 404 that's rentable.
But
There's no historical-
There will
it
be,
seems funny though,
but
because
it's not necessarily all rent. We've got a garden, can still, I believe, be under a Mills Act. I don't think it has to be a structure.
According to the consultant, there is no garden left.
I realize that, but if they were to return it, you could do that. So it doesn't have to have a physical building, it can be something else that's restored. Fountains, podiums, whatever. But I almost think it's so complicated, we can't make or I'm not sure I could make a decision today, but how do we keep it moving? I mean, they're getting a tax break before anything happens, or before they're even able to do anything, because they really can't do anything until they get their permits. They could do minor repairs and restoration on the house. It doesn't make any sense to pay for any work on the fountain at this time, other than maintaining it, the weeds. But if you think you can word it that way, when would this tax savings go into effect? In, what, April?
Yeah, next year.
Is that when it would?
Well, the proposed completion of phase one is 2026.
So they would
Yeah,
get
so
the
that-
tax savings before the.
well, the tax years go from July 1st to June 30th. So there might be a deadline to get it in by January 1, but that doesn't mean 2025. Those 12 months are the tax year. It's probably for the tax year starting July 1st of 2025. So that first half payment's not due till December 10th. I don't like the county's answer at all, because if the rents you can get on the house are a lot more if you have a nice big yard down there. It's ancillary to the, I mean, it creates value to any rental income.
I think that there's some things that I'm trying to find a path forward here for,
Yeah, so am I.
for the meeting. So the first thing is staff can commit to, if you have questions and the owner has questions that you'd like us to ask the county before we take this to the city council, let us know here today what your questions are. And we can explore that to inform what goes to city council. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to look at the list and see if you generally agree with the items. And I guess the third thing is what Commissioner Crandall initially said about just applying it to 402 and not 404. I think those are the three action items.
Yeah, because
Are you okay with staff's
once
idea or
construction's
not?
done, your tax bills, your property tax is gonna go way up. So trying to base the tax savings now on what's there would be considerably less than what it'll be when they're done.
I mean, the other thing too is which items here are on 404?
Larry already went through those already, but we can
Yeah,
briefly
you
go
don't be
through.
able to tell. There's no forward.
Let's see, we have,
Just so you have a clear picture too, our yearly tax is 27,000 for 402 and 18,000 for
Okay.
404.
is this one of them, Larry? 14?
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a wood gate on the lower 404.
This one, 20,
Yeah, the fountain.
regarding the fountains.
So that's 5 years from now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which if you do your project, it's gonna be quicker than that. You're gonna wanna be open as fast as possible.
There's this item to put together a landscape plan. This one is written to include both.
It is? Okay,
Uh,
I
we-
can tell
we
by
can-
looking at it like that.
We can revise it to just say 402.
You know, other than that fountain item 20, I think most of these are, isn't it pergola on 402?
26 is on 404, so this would be
That
wiped
is?
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would strike that if that's what. we
Right, so you
decide.
have 2 items that are 404 and the rest are on 402.
No,
No.
there's overlap. There's like the very, very first item is basically, or one of the first 3 is to fix all of the major walls.
So this is one we can be specific about.
I'm starting to get worried that we haven't do this work prior to construction of the project. And I wouldn't repair a wall too much prior to construction because it's probably going to crack during construction. I wouldn't do any flat work.
Okay.
It
I have an
Larry,
idea.
so you
I have
have
an idea
proposed
Yeah.
now. I was
2030.
talking about this.
Go
some
for
more.
it.
I have an idea.
Well, I didn't
okay.
know. I wouldn't even. I would just disregard that. I just-
Disregard that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was under the understanding with the Mills Act, you had 10 years to complete everything. So
All right, I have an idea. So, I hope it makes sense. So, my idea is that we work with the owner to pull out the items that can be completed without the project. So, it doesn't have anything to do, like you're not going
Yes.
to do something
Agree
and tear
with
it
that.
out, okay?
Yep.
agree
We
with
figure
that.
out what those are. Those are the first things that you do, okay? So you can start using your savings to improve the property right away. Okay, so I know that that's different than the other ones, all right? Then we have the other things like we have them today. The structural is first, right? So the structural items are for, this is again with the project occurs. Okay, the project occurs, we do everything we normally do. All the structural things would be timed first and then we work your way down, right? And we put in the agreement that if the project were not to occur, then it would force an amendment to the contract, right? Like we would have to, the property owner in the city automatically has to reopen the agreement and relook at things like the fountain,
Yeah, I think
maybe
that's
do a
fair.
merger, so that you get the tax, maybe that will help you get the tax savings on there to do the fountain, whatever. But it at least lets you start doing things with the money to improve the building. Is that
Those
Work?
savings are
Yes, that
significant.
works for me.
Yeah, those
Okay.
are significant savings.
Yes.
Your 402. They're significant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seemed like, what did you say it was, your tax on 402 was?
Tax is
Discuss
27,
20-something.
27, and
On
it's,
402?
and it's 18 on 404.
Yeah, so.
I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but, I've
No, it
been
does.
That's a lot.
No, it does seem
No,
like
I'm
a
just
lot.
saying, like, but when
Won't
you're
seem
talking
like
about
a
the
lot.
numbers
No,
we
but it
spend
does seem
on
like a lot.
geos
It
and,
does.
It's,
it's adding up.
And that's
So-
every year.
And we're backing
Yeah,
it.
no,
this
we
year,
get it.
so
I-
it's- yeah. And it's
I-
every year, yeah.
I could work with that myself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I would, so I agree, but I would like to see you guys call the county again and try and get them to say, hey, be firmer on 404 has tremendous value for, if they're basing it off of rental value or something, it has its own rental value. You could rent that space out for a day for weddings or whatever.
Not really,
No.
If it was fixed up some,
not really.
well,
That's
whatever.
not
go
permitted-
there.
That's not a permitted use.
I still think that
Oh, but
to not get credit for
the way
improvements down there is not
property is
fair.
assessed is
Sorry, I don't
different
agree with
than-
that, Scott. I just don't agree.
Well, I don't agree that they shouldn't get credit if they make improvements down there.
Okay,
But they're
let
not going to.
me open this up to
That's
the
the
public
thing.
one more time.
Yeah.
Final comment here, Larry Culbertson.
Larry Culbertson, Historical Society. The idea of doing some improvements right away, what follow-up is gonna be done on that? Something's supposed to be done in the next 18 months. How hard are you gonna follow up on that, make sure it gets done?
Well, that was back to the previous
You
conversation.
heard the answer already.
You're just rehashing.
Well-
The situations are different because you're dealing long-term, here we're dealing short-term.
I think on a single item, we could probably request that they track the permits, because a lot of them may be a structural repair, which will require permits.
And what are you gonna do if there's not compliance?
They lose their Mills Act. They're in violation.
It's never been done before.
First time for everything.
Another topic, there was a long list of violations. Have those all been cleared up, code enforcement violations?
Is that a prerequisite to enter into the contract? Probably should be.
But I don't know, I don't
think
know.
there's any
I do not see any
violations that are
open,
outstanding.
open code cases.
A
I do
long
not
list
see
of
any
violations.
And the Mills Act applies to everyone following up, not just 402 and 404. So that should be a question posed to everyone.
You weren't here, but we all said that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just feel a little singled out right now.
You're not being singled out.
Yeah.
One other quick
We
issue,
agree.
one other quick issue that hasn't been mentioned here at all has to do with the consultant, GPA. I think it's entirely inappropriate that GPA, who was the paid consultant for the new malts, to be the one who did put together this list. I looked over the list, it is a rather extensive list. Don't really have any complaints with it, they cover a lot of items, but it still appears inappropriate that their consultant put the list together. I raised this.
But wouldn't that be a benefit in a way, Larry, because they're familiar with the property and they charge the city less?
I would think that's a
Are
question
you
for
happy
city
with the
attorney.
list? I mean, that's the bigger question. Are you happy with the list? I mean, we've always had open communication. What's not on that list that?
It's not the bigger question because it's something the city should not have done. The city should have used an independent contractor. Every other Mills Act had an independent consultant put together the list. And here we had a consultant who worked for the applicant. It's not really appropriate.
Okay, just have the
Comment
city
received.
attorney review that.
I raised a question with Jonathan and he said, yeah, I see what you mean, but
Well, to comment on that, we will be reaching out to a third party for a peer review of that. That's a,
Okay, peer review. Okay, that would accomplish it.
And, I just want to give credit to them. I mean,
Just take your name.
Christy Kachigian. I own a property, Ole Hansen property, and I don't think we give these owners enough credit for putting millions and millions of dollars out there to preserve something that is just extremely special for our city. And going through all these meetings and meeting after meeting and rule after rule and vote after vote, I just think it's very honorable for their commitment, and they just don't get the credit that, I think everyone should get, especially then with this huge investment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Acknowledge Paul.
Yeah,
No.
I have a question. How long have you guys owned the property?
Close to 4 years.
4 years? And because what I've noticed, and I agree with her, but what I've noticed is that it seems to be getting worse and not better. And so it doesn't appear, because I walk by there regularly, my Ole Hansen house is up the street. And so I'm just wondering if you've delayed doing some of the structural things that need to be done to the property because you thought you were gonna get approval for, for the bigger project? And if so, is this now your impetus for actually, doing some of the things that needed to be done to the property anyway? And maybe should have been done over the last 4 years? Is that why you're asking for this? It's a question.
We spent $60,000 on painting it and got hell throughout the process of painting it. It was like citation for painting the house. And so I gave up. I was like, I do everything by the book, get everything approved, and,
We've contacted the city about the wall. The wall's been a concern of ours. I mean, if you're referencing that, I'm not sure exactly what specific features you're
Well, so
referencing.
that's the main thing that
Yeah.
you see from the street. But I mean, as a historical homeowner, I understand what the process, and I'm with you as well, on the process can be daunting, and
we have a permit now, it's
We have a
up
permit now.
there. So,
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of this was this process before we
Yeah.
start diving in, but.
And I went through the same thing. I actually got red tagged on my property and for doing some things without a permit. And then what happened is that through the process I met David, and this has been a godsend because now I'm involved in this whole process of city government, and met Larry through the Historical Society, got on the Mills Act, and the whole thing has been a good thing. So we want to, from my perspective, from the Historical Society, we want to be your partner in helping preserve this property and help you get moving forward with it. I'm just asking questions so I understand
Okay.
where you're coming from. Because what we'd like to see is that if this gets approved, and I think these guys are on the path to make that happen, then we want to see those things move forward, and we like that, right? So I'm encouraging you, as somebody on this, also a Holy Hanson owner, to do so.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to be a little honest here that obviously you'd like to get the property tax reduction as soon as possible. And that's a financial choice, that's fine. If we can, is there any downside to the city? Well, the city loses a little bit of the property tax that we would normally get for that from the county. But the county takes a hit too, which doesn't disappoint me at all. And if we can craft this properly where it's seamless going from not having project approval to having project approval,
Yes.
the way you thought you can do it, I could be comfortable with that.
I think it was the reverse though.
How's that?
Not having approval, doing 402, and then if it turns out that that's not gonna happen, revisit it 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whenever that is, and amend it to include 404. That's what I heard Christopher say.
What I'm saying is, based on the conditions that are there now, do the work that can occur without the project. So the building as it is, not the retaining wall, right? Because the retaining wall would be, and you're not going to fix the retaining wall and then rip out the retaining wall for the development project, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that you don't put at the early of the list, right? You put all the things that can be done now,
Okay.
right? Well, they're they have permits to do some rehab, right? And would work with staff on whatever they need, right? So any rehab they can do now without the project being done, they do that
Yes.
with tax savings. Then the other work that would all be impacted by the project, we say these things will occur with the project.
Okay.
They must be done, and we can say something like the timeline will be, year 1 following approval, year 2. Like we don't have to do the year 2026.
It'll be within the 10 years.
Yes,
And
then
if it's new construction, how is it gonna be handled?
we have in there we could put in there any new construction by the policy of city San Clemente is not tax savings. I don't know. We can work
Okay.
that out. But basically, if the project weren't to occur, there would be language in there that says that forces an amendment to the contract between the owner and the city, and maybe we re-explore 404 with the county and a merger, whatever might be needed to address the law as it is now and getting them more tax savings to do whatever over there. So that's the idea. Is that clear?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, it's basically let's work with what we know.
Okay.
Like what we know is that they got a permit from the city to do a project. So like let's not wait years for the Coastal Commission to approve something in order for them to start working
Well, I
on
like
things.
bifurcating it, that the stuff that you're good, for example, all this is all good go.
Yes.
Good go.
Exactly.
Let's get it in there.
Yes.
But this,
Yes.
all this, that's
Yeah.
all gonna be excavated?
Yeah. Don't do that now.
No, it's not, that's not.
Yeah, I think what we're
Yeah.
looking at is, I think you said
But-
28,000 and 18,000 are the two tax bills.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So they're
It's
gonna
not
be
a-
probably saving on lot
It's-
404,
It's,
12,000 a year.
whatever, it's gonna
So
be
it's
significant.
well, for the cost of the project, it's not very significant. And on the other one, they're investing the money right away.
Yeah.
So I'm not,
I think it's
We're-
fair to do what you're saying, and then if it turns out that for whatever reason, they're not gonna do the project, and they wanna come back and add to the list, like, okay, we wanna do these retaining walls, we wanna clean up the garden, we wanna do, great, let's amend the contract. Let's
the other thing I'm thinking of here
to include
is,
all that.
my thought on those numbers are small compared to what they're doing. If they get 28, say it's 20,000 a year, 18 to 20,000 a year for 2 years. Once the project goes, there are no more Mills Act repairs. They're all covered under the basic project. You're having to restore with the consultant watching everything being restored on the building, correct?
Yeah, and that's
So really that list
Yeah.
disappears, and I would assume,
Well, this disappeared, but it's gonna be met, probably at an accelerated rate.
that's right. That's like the other
well,
two items.
they're
today.
being obligated
the-
to do it by another permit that supersedes the Mills
Right.
Act.
But I don't know that the Mills Act is not linked to a permit. The Mills Act stands alone. You gotta get
That's
it
what I'm
done,
saying.
And yeah, that's what I'm saying. It stands alone, whether it's a new construction permit or rebuild, it doesn't matter the permit. It just matters that within this period of time, you're gonna do this stuff. If they greenlight their new project, it'll just be done all in an accelerated fashion. But if it's not greenlit and they decide, we can't make this work, but we're still gonna retain the property, then we still have the Mills Act to help them finish
Well,
the project
And
on the home, and then we should give them credit for the remaining 404 parcel and whatever items they're gonna do with that.
yeah, and it's gonna be reappraised at some astronomical amount when you're all done. But
Yes, it's
the
the
Mills Act
There's no
savings,
control over
Yeah,
that.
project.
the Mills Act savings amount on the taxes, I wouldn't think would go up.
I mean, to
In
be
other
quite
words,
honest,
if there's enough money in the original Mills Act savings to repair the building as is historically, and they do the whole project and it's reappraised at some higher amount, the dollar value should probably stay the same, not the same proportion.
But that's up to the county, so I don't know.
Well,
what
no,
part
but
of the-
we're writing the contract.
Right, yeah, but we're not doing the assessing.
They're assessing it on our contract though, basically. In other words, would they still get 80% of the new value? Or would there,
No, because the historical portion of the.
That's what I'm
property is
saying.
a smaller percentage of the,
Yeah,
yeah, so
So,
it wouldn't stay at 80% or whatever it is.
so the county will figure that out.
well then, if you're not worried about those big numbers, do both parcels. The way you're talking about.
You like the plan?
Mhm.
Okay.
So is there ever a chance the garden will come back?
Probably not till construction's done. Something will be there, but no, the whole garden will not come back. And it'll be done per the consultant. You know, the Secretary of Interior standards, which you've already complied with in the construction documents, or in the design documents.
Entitlement documents.
So I
Okay,
think
so
we
Mike,
leave it
we're
up to
back.
you, but I'd love to hear how it comes out before it goes to council.
Okay. I think that we can report back at probably at the next meeting,
That'd be
maybe.
great.
But to keep this going to council, we're going to have to write our staff report and
Just
keep moving along.
Mike,
the schedule.
Or what I would say is, if you want to hear back, just click on the council report link and read it.
And
see
if you
what
want
they
to just
came
email
up
us when you get something
A draft. Yeah.
addressed, that's fine.
I mean, we could do that, or
And if we
you
see a
know,
red
we can
flag, we'll
easily
bring it
put
up,
something
bring
on
it
the
up rather than
agenda,
trying to schedule it and
update
agendize
on-
it wrong.
and
Doesn't
you
matter.
could talk about it if you want. If not, then it's up to you.
Okay, well, it can move along. What's the next one?
Thank you,
Good
Larry.
luck, guys.
Joel.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
The
so we'll
last
coordinate with you.
two are the
Make sure
first
you
two
get
items,
forward.
A and B. And that's 143 Avenue Granada.
Take care of you.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Do we have a,
The owner's not here. That's Christian Walk. I think we all heard his name. He's been through this process before.
Yeah, he's been here,
all the
we've
hands,
met
so
him before.
he was not able to attend the meeting, but the first one is 2A 143 Avenue Granada. This is the commercial
house?
Yeah, commercial property. It used to be fired up, right? Yeah, it's like
The pottery.
like pottery.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's his Christian Walks, a real estate office. For this one, we came up with 16 improvements, and from what we understand, Christian, the owner, is in agreement with the entire list and has no issue.
I noticed that I didn't see termite on this one.
15.
15.
They're all, termites are going on every one of them.
Yes, 15 termite pest
You should
control.
use the word must instead of should.
No,
Which one
should be,
Number 15.
shall be.
shall be.
Any comments from commissioners? Nope. Public?
I went to the property and it's amazing.
It's a neat little property.
Mr. Watt did wonderful work. He's not afraid to spend the money, so I'm sure he'll pull this out within.
I'm surprised it took so long to become a Mills Act property. Okay, next one.
And then the next one is 161 West Marquita, same owner. He's in agreement with all the improvements and has no request to change anything on the list.
Okay, so the sequence and all is
He's the same one.
good.
Walk comes this one also?
Walk,
Yes.
yeah.
I don't know how they moved that thing. I would have loved to have watched it.
Yeah.
I saw one in downtown Orange get moved, a huge house.
They
They
described
moved.
it in the
Mhm.
permits, what
This-
they used
Oh, it
to
was,
move it.
it was really, really something.
The report says it was moved from 104 East Oriente, but the DPR form says it was a Kenyatta, 104 Kenyatta.
You know
I
what?
always heard Kenyatta.
I did see that, and when I went through the one on the 2006, it references El Oriente. You know, I wonder if, maybe they could have moved it twice. I don't know. They didn't really say. There was no other permits for 104 East El Oriente.
They have two
So-
separate structures too. There's a garage with a unit.
Yes, yes.
Could have been.
Although in the moving permit, it does say single family residential and garage. It does say garage. No, that one does say Granada.
I'll talk to you later.
I tried to I did as much research as I could.
Yeah, I actually worked on this project with Christian. This is like one of those projects that you drive around and you're proud that you had a part in this one. Because
Oh, yeah.
when I first started working here, I drive by this property and I'd say something's unusual about this one because you could tell it was moved. They did great work. But yeah, there's a historic report on this, Larry. You wanted a lot of information on the history of this one. There's a report on this one.
He gave me a copy
That's
of
it, it's
that.
that thing on
Yeah, it's got kind of a unique look to it.
Does it show the-
It's not really Spanish colonial. It's got a little bit of true Spanish.
Yeah.
Um,
But like if you go back, David, on that one, okay, so
Right.
see the building on the left? Okay, you could tell like they put the foundation, right? And then they set it on there and that always looked unusual. Before it was even worse because they did stucco work there. So you could see before
There was a
you could
line.
see a line like all the way across. And so they added these retaining walls in here to kind of add emphasis to the historical part of the house. It did,
Line 4 doesn't have a year.
Okay. Number 4.
Number 4.
Oh, okay. That should be 2025.
yeah, this is another one on the driveway. Before they repair driveways,
Continue on level.
check for pipes underneath the driveway. Concrete was the only place. These houses. Okay.
What was that recommendation again, Bart? Check sewer and
Just the
water.
typical one because I'm of the opinion now that when people do repairs to their sewers and all on a historic driveway or walkway, they got to replace it so you can't see a patch. I mean, it just spoils the whole effect of the house. Okay, any other comments on this one? Anything from public on this one?
And I know on this one, he spent a fortune.
Okay.
It could have been 500,000, he spent a lot. It's beautiful.
Any other comments?
Nope.
Okay, we have no new business, we have no old business. Oral and written communications, none. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
We will adjourn to the November 27th, 2024 meeting at 3 p.m.
That doesn't sound, that's the day
That
before
doesn't sound
Thanksgiving.
right.
What do we say to that, Chris?
That's the day before Thanksgiving. Normally we're dark that week.
let me. I need that, please. Give me a couple minutes. Sorry. I mean, you could adjourn to the
Sure.
meeting that you wish to set. So,
Oh, I don't have the calendar. in front
I'll
of me.
tell you right now, like it's
December 11th.
the second and fourth.
Or December 8th.
It's the second and fourth. So either it would be the 11th.
11th.
Yeah, the 11th would be the second Wednesday of
Let's
this
adjourn to then.
second Wednesday of the December.
And the 20,
So yeah, it's the 11th would be the normal date of the meeting.
okay, we will be adjourning to the December 11th, 2024 Design Review Subcommittee meeting.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have one abstention. And we are adjourned.